Thanks, you guys, for letting me come today. If you do not have a handout, let me know and I'll meander around your way. At 2:45 on the first day of a conference, I think, oh boy, I'm going to have to pull out all my energy and all the stops because I know there's a lot of information that's been coming at you. This is going to be very informal, a very interactive session. I hope you all walk away with something meaningful and you just also have a good time. So that's my goal for today. I'm going to be talking about Charting the Life course, which is a framework that was created by families that have a family member with a disability and family support professionals at a conference that occurred in 2012. And that conference brought all these people together to talk about what do we know? What do we know about the experiences that people with disabilities and their families have? And how do we do our very best job to support them? And so a number of states were represented there, families, family support providers, funding sources, and they walked away from that conference with a community of practice. 5 states, including my state, Missouri, said, look, we want to come together and figure out how to take what we know now about best supports for families and put it into some sort of a framework that's actually going to help, so that we can be sure that all families and all people with disabilities have access to what they need as they're going through different stages of their lives. So I'm really proud to say that Missouri, as one of the founding states, came back to our UCED, which is the University Center on Excellence with Developmental Disabilities, and they created this Charting the Life course framework, which is a very straightforward framework of 8 principles that we follow to be sure we're doing good work. And each of those principles has tools that are attached to it that are really easy to use, really pretty, and can help you as you plan, whether that's planning for this weekend or planning for 5 to 10 years from now, and they can help you with problem solving. Since we started, all those purple states have adopted Charting the Life course framework at a statewide level. That means their funding sources are using this. They're using the tools as part of their official planning documents. School districts are using this. And the light purple states are states that are coming on board. The gray states, every single one of them, including other countries, have practitioners of Charting the Life course. It's not at the state level yet, but there's somebody there that's already seen this and gotten excited about it and used it. And the reason that is important to me, having done this for so long, is that I've watched families from the time their kiddos are 2, 3, 4, have to go through multiple systems of service. And every system has its own weird language, its own processes, its own legalese, and families end up getting confused. Families feel like they're at the bottom of the bucket, and it's really hard to make sure your voice is front and center and your children's voice is front and center with planning and problem solving, because they change the rules and they change the language all the time. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is something I need to be engaged with, because this is it. This is what's going to give family access to taking charge and being able to speak up and advocate. And each one of those children that have a disability, as they get older, they're going to be able to take on more and more and speak up for themselves. So that's why I became part of the Charting the Life course team. I work at the St. Louis ARC, but I'm a Charting the Life course ambassador coach. So I teach people all over the country about these principles and how to use them. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the 8 principles today. That could be a whole nother presentation. But these pretty graphics describe what they are. The most important one is that all people deserve to live, love, and pursue their goals in the community. And so it's really important within this framework that we talk about all. And these tools are not about disability. I used them to plan my wedding. I've used them to think about my retirement. I've used them with my mother, who's 87, to think about how to take care of her as she's getting older. So they're for the all. These principles are focused on the person in the center, with all the people that love and care about them as a part of the team, so that everybody gets support. And these principles are lifelong. We look at life holistically, from all the different life stages your family is going to go through, but also the different things that make our lives worthwhile. It's not just school. It's not just what's happening at home. It's not just quality healthcare. It's all of it together. So there's a variety of life domains that we look at and we consider as we're moving forward this. So who needs one of these packets? Okay, I'm going to walk around a minute. Let's see what I need to talk about now. Oh, this is my one-page profile. Who said they needed one? So I wanted you to get to know me a little bit through a more LifeCourse-y kind of way. I have a pretty high level of energy. So I always get assigned to do the last presentation in the afternoon. Mostly it's by my own staff, and I think they're just mean and they want to see if I'm going to screw up. But maybe people know that this is who I am. I'm really empathetic to what's going on. And really, I do love to plan and problem solve. If you want to know what to do for dinner tonight, come talk to me after this, because I will strategize with you about all your opportunities for that. I care about my family. I care about equity, that everybody has access to what they need to be successful. And boy, do I like a good time. So that's really important. How best to support me? We all have support needs. I asked if I had to stand at the podium today because I have a lot of attention deficit sensory kinds of stuff. I am not good standing behind a podium, so I need to be able to move around. I also like to know what's going to happen. Don't surprise me. Give me information so that I can plan, so that I can ask questions. I want to get to know you. Let's stop. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let me find out about you. You can find out about me. And if I'm cranky and irritable, the last presentation was on self-care. I have lost my battery charge. I need to figure out how to get that back, and I probably need to have a break or some rest so that I can regroup, because I'm in trouble. So your turn. You guys have a sheet in front of you, and it says what people like and admire about me, what's important to me, and how best to support me. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time, but I want you to look at that, and I want you to think about yourself only, not your kiddos. What should people know about you? What's important to you? And what kind of support do you need? So everybody do your own work. Don't write on anybody else's page. You never have to do anything in one of these presentations because this is your time. So I am just encouraging you to participate. And the reason I'm encouraging you to participate for yourself is that everybody always wants to plan for their child. And you'll have time for that. I do want you to have time for that, but I also want you to realize that having just sat through this last self-care presentation, it's important for you all to know what's important in your lives too. Because if you're not thinking about that and sharing that, nobody knows how to get those things done either. I'm gonna give you one more minute. Okay, so now we're gonna take 4 minutes, and I want you to find a partner, somebody in the room, and I want you to tell them what you wrote down and introduce yourself. And the first person that talks gets 2 minutes to talk, and the other person listens and doesn't say a word, doesn't offer suggestions, just listens. And then the other person will have a chance to talk. So you can begin. All right, I see my team in the front that knows each other is helping add to what people care about, admire about you, which is great. That's fine once you've said your piece to get extra added bonus info. I love it that you guys are so full of communication with each other. To me, I was so excited to be here last night at the happy hour, at the reception, because it was just such joy in the air to see the kids running around and see all the families making connections. I think that's really important. So this is a really quick 4 minutes. Were you able to think of something that maybe you wouldn't normally share with people that you put on your one-page profile, something that felt important to you, something you learned about the person with you that seemed important? Okay. I hope it was meaningful. Let's switch and think about your family member that has a genetic disorder. What are some of the things that you think might be revealed in this form for them? What I find with these forms is that kiddos and their families are able to put information in a snapshot, one piece of paper. That means a lot. It means a lot to a medical team. It can mean a lot to a therapy team, an education group, and an employment support. So there's lots of ways you can use this to share information quickly and to help a person maybe with some communication challenges, share about themselves in a way that's really organized, so it's going to help them. This is my friend Ben's one-page profile. I haven't said this up to now, but Charting the Life course is about the principles, not those pieces of paper. So I gave you paper so we'd all have a common form to work on, but that really doesn't make any difference. So Ben likes pictures, and he likes to tell people what he thinks. So his mom wrote down the things that are next to these, but it was important for him to graduate with his class. He didn't want to have a separate thing. He wanted to be able to graduate with his class. It was important for him to be with all the people in his life, friends and family that he had things in common with. It was very important for him to go to the fire station regularly and give back and be connected to the fire department. And he wanted to hang out with friends. He didn't want to spend all his time with his family. He wanted to go out and do stuff fun. Stuff that bothered him. He didn't want to leave home without his wallet. He didn't want his dog on his bed, which I would not normally think about that. I love having the dog on the bed. So he didn't want to be sick or have a family member in the hospital. Didn't want to be treated differently than other people. So Ben's able to share that in a really organized, short format. And people know these are like the key things for me that make a difference. So any way you want to do it is great. The second form is the inside of your packet. This is a trajectory, and this is the primary planning document in Charting the Life course. And a trajectory is a weird word. It's one of those things that, I think people feel like is really professional or medical sounding. It's probably the only one in this, but really it's just your path. Your path is your trajectory. And so when we talk about trajectory in Charting the Life course, we think about different life stages. Because where you start off when you're an itty bitty, when you're a little kiddo, you have one thing that you might be working on and some challenges that you've got here, but they may change over the course of time. Your goals, your skill set, your dreams, all those things change over time. We think about what we want and what we don't want. The reason I think this is really important is that if you don't know where you're going, you can spend an awful lot of time going in circles and wasting your time. And there's one thing I know about families, you don't have any time to waste. You want to be sure you're going in the right direction. And this can help you think about the decisions that you're going to make. I also know that sometimes thinking about what a great life would be like down the road, sometimes that's really hard because right now might be really hard. And most families live in that today moment where there's medical situations to worry about, there's therapies, there's day-to-day getting through your work schedule and your home schedule and all those sorts of things. A lot of times we start off with what I don't want. Because most people can say, I don't want my kiddo to be in the hospital all the time. I don't want them to be without any friends. I don't want to have my marriage have problems because we're always spending time thinking about our kids. I don't want to be poor because how much it costs to take care of my family member. So we start off with the trajectory and thinking about the what I do want and what I don't want categories. And you can do that for your whole family, or right now you can focus on your child with a disability and just think about for their lives. And you guys decide as we go through this. It can be what you want to see happen at the beginning of the school year. It can be in their next life transition. Maybe they're moving from early childhood education to elementary school, or it can be 5 or 10 years down the road. Maybe there's some other thing that seems significant to you. But think forward, even if it's only to end of August. What do you want things to look like? What do you not want? And what do you want? And let's take a few minutes for you to make some notes. Parents, you can either work together or you can think about it separately and then come together and think and see what you have that's the same and what you have that maybe is not quite the same and has some conversation may need to occur. One of the things I do when I'm thinking about the trajectory is I think about different parts of my life, like what is really important for my good life at home and what would be bad. What's important for my good life in terms of my social life or my faith experience, and what do I not want? What about daily life and employment? What do I want school to look like, or a job, or volunteer work, and what do I not want? What about safety and security? Are there things about that that resonate with you that you want to say, it's really important to me to be safe in my neighborhood? Or is there something that you don't want to see? Bullying, maybe that's a concern for you. And advocacy and engagement. How do you want your family to be connected to issues that are important to you? Maybe there's some things you want to include in here about a sibling or other family members that might be important. Okay, you guys can always add to these. One of the things I like to do is see if there's anybody that's willing to share some of their what they don't want and what they do want. Usually people realize, oh, I should add that to mine. So anybody open to sharing their vision for a great life? Is it a great life for you to be able to cook for yourself? Is that important? What about being able to mini golf? Yeah? What about getting a job? You want to do something with your parents? What is that? Do you want to keep living with your mom and dad and spending time with them? Oh, you want to work at the grocery store? Yeah, okay, super. So all right, he's not a plant, but thank you for being here. I know he spent a lot of time the last few years learning to cook. I know he just had a job this summer at Schnucks at the grocery store, and he did so well. The guy said, come back and I'll hire you at any store you want to go to. So he's got some dreams that are really important to him, and we know what they are. Dad might have some other ideas about things that are really important in his life. Is there anything you'd add, Dad? Sorry, calling you out too. Okay. So Cody, can you think about that? 25 years old, what are you going to be doing? Do you think you'll have friends? Yeah. What about a date? Will you have any romance? No? Okay. It's not up to me to decide. It's really important as you're doing this to try and hear what people are saying and accept it for what it is and pull that information out. I was doing this once with my friend Danny, and he told me a great light for him was sleeping all the time, which I was not going to have that. But you know what? I didn't say that. I said, can you tell me what that means to you? Danny has disrupted sleep patterns because of his seizure disorder, and he doesn't ever get a good night's sleep. I was like, I'm so glad I didn't just jump in with my professional hat and say, you shouldn't sleep all the time, because he had something important to tell me. So it was really good to know that. All right, so Cody shared. Anybody want to add anything to what Cody shared? Way to go. I think how many of you all want to be able to live up to your expectations and your kids' expectations as a parent and caregiver? That's pretty universal too. And that comes with some pluses and minuses. So we're going to talk a little bit about the arrow, because there's things that we do every day that are going to take us towards the great job, towards the great financial stability, or maybe they're going to take us down to what we don't want, which sometimes we think that being the greatest parent means we're going to be there 25 hours a day and we're going to be the person that solves all the problems. But maybe what needs to happen so you don't end up being overwhelmed and losing your financial stability and other things is that you need to pull in some additional resources. So when we get to problem solving, you might think about some of that. Anybody else want to say anything about this before we move on? People are so afraid that I'm going to make eye contact with them. I'm really enjoying that. I'm sorry. I'm that person. Okay, so, that picture's terrible. There's a couple terrible pictures in here because they were pictures that all I had was the picture. So I just wanted to share them. This is a young man who's got his vision in a scrapbook, and he carries the book around. So if he wants to tell people about what he wants for his work or what he wants for his daily life, he's got pictures of it, of what he's actually doing in his life. So I thought that was really cool. And I wanted to share with you again, there's a million ways to use these tools that feel right for you and your family. The one on the right is Jada's, and she and her family sat down together and talked about the school year starting, and we want to have good communication this year. We want to have good communication with the teachers, and we want you to be successful with your communication at school. So Jada gave them a list of things that were important to her, and mom and dad wrote a list of things that were important to them. So Jada's got some really cool stuff on there: reading, dancing, making friends, and having a leadership role, which I thought was really cool. But she also said, I need to watch the way I talk to people. I may not make those friends if I have an aggressive tone of voice. If things aren't appropriate for my age, I'm not going to be able to participate. And she didn't say appropriate for her age, but they figured out some things that were important for her. Mom and dad wanted to make sure they were respected at school and that people listened to what they had to say, and they didn't want limited communication. So they went in for the beginning of the school year. They could walk in with a piece of paper, nothing confrontational, and just say, hey, we want you to know these are our goals for the school year. Can we have a conversation about how we can all make that happen together? And I think sometimes you end up having this relationship with the school that is very combative, and it's not really healthy for you, and it's not necessarily going to give you the outcomes you want. Sometimes a lot of families tell me this form is paper courage. It's courage to walk in and say, hey, this is what we're looking at. How can you help us get there? And sometimes the school doesn't understand what your goals are. If your goals are that you want to have competitive employment, you may not be able to meet those goals by being in a completely segregated classroom. So even in elementary school, being able to say, hey, our expectation is down the road that this person's going to be able to get a job. So we need to make sure they can interact with all their other friends and students. So let's see what we can do. How can we build that? How can we make that happen together? Gives you that space to have that together conversation. This is a very detailed trajectory. I love this woman. She was having a terrible fight with her funding team, with home-based healthcare and waiver services. And she decided to do her trajectory on how to sit down with them and say, I don't want to fight with you anymore. I want you to hear about what's important to us and move the ball forward. So for her, this picture of her son surrounded by this strong and healthy family, that really said for her, this is what we want. This is who we are. And we don't want you to be referring to him as somebody that's a bunch of papers and a bunch of diagnoses. So she was able to articulate that with a couple of pictures without being the angry mom. And for her, that was really important. And then she listed some of the things that had happened in the past. This is a different type of trajectory that you can use. Past experiences that either helped things be good or didn't help them, so that she could say, look, we've been down this road before. And when this happened and this happened and this happened, it was good. Things were really good for my son, which is our goal, all of us. And when this happened, they weren't good. So how can we avoid that? And then they set a plan together, helped her to move things forward for her son and plan. A few of you talked about that down the road time. I think it's really important that we all have a moment to think forward, because I think it's so hard not to be just doing what has to be done in the present, because your lives are so overwhelming a lot of the time. So just getting through the day, getting kids out of the house, getting dinner on the table, getting everybody with their medication, all those things can overwhelm you. If you know where you're going, at least you have some kind of vision for what you want your future to look like. You can start looking at anticipatory things. What are some of the things I need to do? For example, inclusive education versus a segregated classroom. Cody, what some of the things that you might have needed to do before you could go to work was to figure out how to talk to customers and really work on your communication skills. Maybe you did chores and got allowance so that you knew what to do with money when you got your first paycheck. Maybe if you wanted to have more friends, you joined clubs and you did things where you were going to hang out with other kids. Did you want to add something? Oh, so dude, you're ready to go for an apartment, washing your clothes. Yes. Yeah. And you know, the cool thing about it is when you can tie all those things to your child's goal, It takes away some of that internal fighting with parents and children. Well, you're the one that said you want to go to college. When you go to college, I'm not going to be there to do your laundry. So you might as well start practicing that now. How can I help you? What do you need to be successful? And then you push yourself out of the nagging parent role and into, I'm going to support you to be more successful with this. What's your favorite meal? You probably should learn to cook this for when you're running out to work and you need to get your own breakfast. So I think this is really important. So think about some of the things you learned. Let's just think about things you needed to learn when you were going to go off and leave your family house for the first time, whether that was college or going to your first apartment. What were some of the significant things that happened in your childhood life that gave you some of the skills that you needed to do that? Just yell them out. Money management. Yes, although I will tell you, there's a lot to be learned from your mistakes around that. I was one of the many people that were offered free credit cards when you got to college and got to learn about the downside of money management. So making mistakes is also an important part of going through some of these things. What other things helped you to be more independent? Yep. Picking up. So just picking up for yourself. That's something you can do when you're real little, huh? Pick up your own toys. Absolutely. So there's things that we can teach kiddos from little bitty age and help move forward with these transitional experiences. And having those experiences helps lead you towards that success that you're going to want to have. So some of this has to be intentional. It may be really hard to do birthday parties with friends, and that might not be important to you. But if it is important to you that your kid has lots of social relationships with other kids in their classroom, you're going to have to find some activities that are going to lead you in that direction. So none of these things happen just by writing it on the trajectory. You have to think about, what are the steps I would need to take to build friendships? What are the steps I would need to take for them to be as capable as possible with money? And I think sometimes this is stressful for families when they think, my child isn't going to be able to do that. And I think it's really important to realize that this is your child's 100%, whatever that is. Because sometimes you're going to get paid services that are going to support some of the things in your life, but that doesn't mean that the best you can be isn't what we want to strive for. Because the more you can do for yourself, the less you're going to need to rely on paid staff, and the more good you're going to feel about yourself. You know, that first time that I actually was able to pay all my bills without having to go back and ask for help, I felt really good about that. So those things build self-esteem too. So whatever that is, if it's a little step or a big step, it's important. Oh, this is a terrible picture. Darn it. This is a trajectory for a parent around self-care. So for this parent, they wanted to, I'm going to just tell you what it says, because clearly you can't read it. They wanted to be able to meditate. They wanted to learn mediation. So they were having some sort of conflict resolution. They wanted to spend more time with friends and exercise. And they wanted to have a date night with their husband. And there were things that they didn't want to. What's important to me about this one is that up at the top, she identified, if I'm going to have a date night, I need to get respite care. So there's an action step that needs to occur there for me to be able to move forward with that. If I'm going to be able to spend more times with friends and exercise, I'm going to find a walking buddy. Maybe somebody I know will go for walks with me, and I can kill two birds with one stone and meet with a friend and go for walks. So the mom identified things that worked for her, made sense for her, that was going to move her towards those goals. So when you get this in your email, you'll be able to see this slide. Okay, what kind of questions do you guys have? I've been talking and talking. You all have had, the chocolate has seeped in now, so I know that you've got energy and excitement now. Anything about the trajectory? I want to say again that this is something I do with people of all abilities. We do a lot of vision boarding when we're doing the trajectory so that people can do a vision board about what feels really good to them. And sometimes we'll do kind of there was a lightning bolt on it. We'll do a what's the things you don't want to see with some graphics around that they're able to tell you. And I always laugh. 13-year-olds always say, I don't want to go to jail. I don't know why that is the first thing. I don't know if it's the TV they watch or what mom and dad say, but it makes me laugh because I do use these quite a bit with younger teenagers, and they have a very interesting perspective of the world. I'll just say that. So this last part of your packet is the back page, and it's called the Integrated Support Star. And this was created because of a couple things. One is because of our kind of history supporting people with disabilities. And we've spent a lot of time creating services. And so all those services were created to try and give you all support. But what happened in a lot of cases was the services started to create barriers between your family member and the bigger community, and even maybe from your extended family, because these services became really specialized and only I'm good enough to do this. Not everybody can provide them support. So we had this really tight wraparound that we provided to people that kind of separated them from their community. The other thing that I think is a part of this is money. There's just not enough money. And even if there is enough money, there's not enough paid caregiving staff to step in and fill all the needs that people have. So we have to look more broadly than just paid caregiving in order to get your needs met. And in order for it not to be super mom or super dad who's trying to fill all those gaps, because that's not real either. That just won't happen. So the idea of the integrated support star is that there's 5 things that we can all look at for how do I move forward with this goal? How do I solve this problem? And the one at the top, the light blue wedge, is your personal strengths and assets. What do I bring to the table? What does my family member with a disability bring to the table to make this work? What are they knowledgeable about? Cody's knowledgeable about how to work at a grocery store. He's knowledgeable about how to cook because his mom has taught him all these cool things about cooking with the color-coded chef. Go see her out in the hall. There's so many things that he brings to the table. Plus, I heard that he was the most reliable employee and the most pleasant person to talk to. So his personality characteristics, it wasn't just about what he knew. It was about who he was that made him good. And then sometimes it's what we can do. You know, I can cook a mean scrambled egg, or I can garden and I'm really good at it. Or maybe I'm really a good tech whiz because I've learned how to use all those tech systems. So things I know, things I'm good at, and things I care about, and then my personality characteristics. Those are things that you can bring to the table. Relationships. Who are the people that love your family members and are part of their lives? Maybe those relationships are family, extended family, friends, acquaintances, neighbors, somebody from a sports league, somebody from a church or a synagogue. There's lots and lots of people that hopefully have some kind of contact. How do you nurture those relationships and intentionally bring them into your lives? And I love the relationships here. And I love the fact that there's all these ways that you all stay connected outside of this conference. So that moves into technology. You guys have Zoom meetings, you have a Facebook site, you have all this cool stuff that keeps you connected even when you're not physically together. And those are resources that you have. So that's technology. You may use some assistive technology, AAC devices. Maybe there's some technology that helps with monitoring health or medication. But technology can also be the alarm clock that wakes you up every day, or the microwave oven that makes cooking easier, or a social story or a visual schedule that's going to help you know what it is that needs to happen during the course of the day. So it's anything physical that can help you resolve a problem. Community-based, that's the stuff we all have access to. So whether it's your hospitals, your schools, your parks, your bank, all those things that anybody can walk in the door, sometimes I think we forget. I can go get that resource. Our library, you can check out a fishing pole there, I just learned recently. There are so many things that the library has that I had no idea. I can also get a banjo there, so just saying. If you haven't looked at the library lately, the library has a lot of really cool stuff. So figure out what's in your community and look at where are there things that could be meaningful to me. They do a ton of free classes too for kiddos. And then finally, eligibility. What are you eligible for because of a certain characteristic? And we're here because of disability. So maybe you're getting Medicaid. Maybe you're getting some other kind of benefit through your state. Maybe you guys have insurance because of your employers that is specific to you and is helping you meet your needs. But sometimes there's eligibility that we forget about. I'm a college alumni. I never go back to my college and look at what might be available to me. Sometimes you're a veteran and there's veterans benefits that you have access to. So all of these things are things that you can put together to try and figure out what can I use to make things move forward here. I use this all the time and I forget sometimes. And then when I do use it, I think, why did I wait so long? I was going to have a destination wedding during COVID. Ended up having 4 people at my wedding in a park, but I couldn't figure out what to do about music because I wasn't going to be in my home area. And I finally realized I could pull out the star and go all the way around the star. And I realized my mom knew some musicians in New Orleans where I was going to have the wedding. Like there weren't tons of musicians there. I figured out things in all the areas, but I chose to pursue some of the relationships she had and find out from them who they would recommend. And that's how I found my wedding musician. What I love about this is that you can come up with 20 or 30 ways to solve the problem, but you guys get to decide. For our situation, we want to look at this technology. For our situation, we want to have a cup of coffee with a neighbor and see if they might help out with this. And so you can use all of these different things to help you move things forward. Okay, so once again, back to you. You can put anything you want in the center of your star. Mine was wedding music when I did mine, but for this activity, I would encourage you to just put your family's resources. What does my family have that we can rely on? So take a few minutes. All right. I know I haven't given you much time. Has anybody got a really cool resource that they want to share with other people that they might want to have access to that they might not have thought about? Anything you've tapped into? All right. So I wanted to show you on the left, these are what we call cheat sheet stars, and there's one for every life domain. So if you're trying to figure out how to solve an issue related to health, to daily life and employment, we've already kind of got you started because sometimes a blank piece of paper is super intimidating. So you can use it like a word bank and just circle the things that make sense to you. This one is a star somebody did about what would be the perfect staff person to support my family member. You know, what are they looking for? And so calling his adult diapers briefs, really important to him. He doesn't want to be perceived as a baby. Making sure that there's accessible transportation and that they're going to get him out. Making sure that people see him, that they're not looking at him as somebody to be nursed and cared for, but that they see him and the things that are interesting. So mom uses this as in her interviewing process. Tell me about, you know, yourself and how you do this. We use these in my office to interview people and figure out what we're looking for. What kind of technology skills do they need to have? What kind of relationship building skills do they need to have? So there's many, many ways that you can use these tools. This was a group activity where everybody was trying to figure out how to get somebody home after a hospital stay. And so everybody in the group did a star and then they came together and discussed it. And then they combined all their ideas into a plan. So sometimes that's a way to kind of get everybody to participate. You know how there's usually one person that just talks all the time. This gives everybody the space to be a part of the conversation. So really that's what I brought today to share with you all. The LifeCourse Nexus, that link is lifecoursetools.com, and you guys will have all these slides. But when you go onto that, it's just a huge amount of resources. They've set up 1 to 5 minute videos. So if you don't have a ton of time, you can watch another family talk for just a couple minutes about how they've used a star or a trajectory or one of the other tools to move things forward for their family member. There's a ton of online opportunities to connect with other people that are using it. So I just wanted you to know that that's there. And then you can always contact me. I love talking about this, even if I'm not in your state. I was telling her I find out what's available in Delaware so that I can let you know. I've got connections with some of those other folks in other states. So I'm happy to try and make those connections. And I will have a booth tomorrow. So if you don't have time to talk today, but you want to come back and talk tomorrow, come and see me. I'll be there from 9 to 11 and then again from 1 to 3. So we've got a few minutes. Any questions? Yes. Do you think, are you following through because you get distracted or because there's other people on the team that you can't get to listen to your plan? Okay. I think for me, the couple things about that would be to not set your timeline too far out and then really dig into those anticipatory steps. What are the steps that can help you move in the right direction? And just pick a couple of those. Like we talked earlier about doing chores or getting an allowance as something that would lead somebody to getting a job. That's the piece you can take and put in the middle of the star. If that's the skill that you think is going to help them move in the next direction, then you take that skill off of the trajectory, put it in the center of the star and think, how can I actually get them to start doing some of this? Maybe doing the chores. I have this mom that I admire so much. She kind of mobilized this team with her daughter when her daughter was about 5 or 6, but her aunt does laundry with her because mom and she butt heads about it. But the aunt comes and does laundry with her once a month. It's not all the laundry, but it's enough laundry that she's learning the skill. She and the aunt stay connected. The aunt feels good that that's her contribution. So I would say just kind of distilling it down to the most highest priorities and then really problem solving about those creatively. Thanks for coming today. I really appreciated it. Yes. Oh, fantastic.
Thank you so much for walking us through today. What does charting the life course look like in states where it's implemented on the state level? So what does this mean and how do I find out if it's available in my state?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. So charting the life course at a state level means that there's an investment in looking at all of these tools as a priority. So it may mean that state employees are going through training like I give to be an ambassador so that they truly embrace these principles and can use them. In our state, it means that the life course tools have been embedded into our planning documents so that annually when we go to do planning, the planning revolves around some of these more graphic kinds of information. We have a lot of coalitions that share tips and tricks with each other. So working together to figure out how other people are using them. So we have one group that just leans into the technology part of it and works on that piece. So there's many different ways that states have used this. Washington, D.C. has embedded it in a lot of their school district work and have used it as part of the framework for self-determination, and they've set self-determination goals for kids from kindergarten through 12th grade. So each state kind of creates their own plan. You can find a list of affiliate organizations on the lifecoursetools.com website, but I don't believe it's comprehensive. What I usually do is Google a state and charting the life course and see what comes up. I did that with Delaware yesterday, and there was a large case management provider and a large residential provider that had it. So that's a starting place for me to go and say, you know, how is this happening in Delaware? What's going on? So. And there's some things that occur that you don't have to be in the same state. We have what we call good life groups, where we provide a space for families to come together, and they always include some educational information, some family sharing and connection, and then resource sharing. So ideally, you'd be from the same state because each state has different resources, but some of that information I think is really valuable regardless, and you can use that. And then you can introduce it. These tools have been introduced by parents, like our school districts. Parents were the ones that came with these tools and said, before we have the IEP, can we have this conversation? Because we'd like to use these tools as part of our planning. And then the school adopted it after the fact. So families have a lot of power to be able to move things forward. But that's a lot of work, I realize that. So having some other partners is helpful.